question?
I'm wondering why neutral feelings shouldn't be overlooked and or missed.
Shouldn't be?
Why? Why are they important?
Neutral feelings are the majority of the feelings. But to the average mind, they seem to be not so interesting, because there isn't that flashy coloration to them. There aren't those ups and downs, upheavals, peaks and valleys about them. People can relate to sad feelings. People can relate to joyful feelings, or things that are really outrageous, loud. But neutral feelings are like bland, almost non-existent. In fact, they are also nightmarish for the average mind. Why? Because we love color. We love nuances, extremes. That's the average Puthujjana's mind. You're sitting now. There's nothing outrageous happening. But there's tons and tons of neutral feelings that are passing through you. But the mind is basically very nonchalantly ignoring them all. The Buddha gave special emphasis to neutral feelings. In fact, so much so that Nibbana occurs through neutral feelings, by you doing the necessary investigative work on neutral feelings. It is for this reason that many people run out of retreats. If they're not getting any bombastic experiences, jhanas, something they could write home about or get on a loudspeaker and announce to the world, or get on a YouTube channel and say yes, no to this. Neutral feelings are neutral. They're not that interesting for the average mind. People used to come, looking at it in a different way, people used to come to Lord Buddha and say, come on, other teachers are actually walking on water, walking through, walls, producing fire, walking into fire, coming out okay. Rising up into the air, flying, this and that. Come on, we heard all these things about you, but we're seeing you just sitting there doing nothing, teaching us Dhamma. The other teacher over there, listen, if you're not going to show me these abilities, I'm going to go. I'm going to go. To that teacher. You had tons of students, so-called students, who had come and walked away from the lay life and became monastics, saying this to Lord Buddha. This is recorded in the suttas, And that's another example, manifestation of this need that we have to really look for and find the outrageous. In fact, the religious practice has become all about that in some religions. Miracles of walking on this and climbing up to this in the air without any support, walking into the clouds. Okay, there's all these birds going in and out of clouds, nothing's happening. Birds are swimming, flying through the sky, fish are swimming through the ocean. They're not awakened. They're not saintly characters. They kill each other. So, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that we like entertainment. So I just gave you the example of an extroverted version of it, or manifested in the world outside type of an example, relationally speaking, between the teacher and the students. And specifically in the case of Lord Buddha, how some students came in saying, well, this is boring. When are you going to actually start to do stuff? So that I know that I didn't make the wrong choice. By coming and doing all these things. I mean, I'm sweeping the floors over here, doing this, and, carrying your bowl in some cases. Come on, I didn't sign up for this. So that is one example as to how it would manifest in between people. But the big, most important aspect of this decrepit way of looking at life, especially on the spiritual life, the practice, is our relationship to the essence of it all, of this seeking to be entertained all. And that is the thirst for agitation. The average person's mind is agitated. Anything that is unagitated becomes unusually uncomfortable. That's why when you slow down a person's pace walking meditation, they don't like it. The eyes don't like it. The brain doesn't like it for sure. That's why it keeps jumping between your ears, left and right, just like a monkey. Coming up with ideas, papanchas, mental proliferations, etc., simply to keep the show going. Because we don't know what to do with silence, with quiet. Why? Because we have been taught that life exists between these two extremes. Something that we like, that has a gravitational pull, that's very attractive, and something that we despise. Not just we don't like, but we despise. And usually the things that happen to most people are the things that they despise. But what's happening in between? The biggest chunk of time is being spent. Think of it as the pendulum going from one side of the pendulum to the other. The ball going left and right, left and right. Well, if you notice, the extremes are the shortest in the shortest time frame. That's when they're occurring, when they hit that spot of the extreme point, the farthest point of the pendulum on either side. But in between, you have the widest range where nothing's happening, and we're waiting for a click. We're waiting for a bang, nothing's happening. That's the neutral feeling. That's why sati for many people is you have to bring something in there. It's like you got to spice it up. That's why people spice it up with thoughts, ideas, interpretations, wrong views, miccha ditthi. Meanwhile, all we have to do is just stay with whatever's happening. And whatever's happening is not exciting, though. It's neutral. That's it, though. That's where you can see the mechanism of the mind, how it moves, the dynamics of how the sankharas are allowed to come and steal the show. Make a show, in fact. Create a scene. Create this fiasco, this circus. Circus is in town now. And that's what happens. It's like a fiesta. Communities around the world, they love to have parties. And that's why we have, weekend. Friday night, all right, party starts. Saturday, oh, all the way through to Sunday afternoon when it starts crashing. Now you have to do the grind and go through the difficult week. Those, you can think of the week as the neutral feeling. But because of the weak days of you doing the work, you are able to live. Not because you're having fun over the weekend, making some stupid mistakes like most people do. Give themselves the permission. Well, it's the holidays, it's the weekend, so I can act like an idiot. So neutral feeling. Neutral feeling, think of it as the very ground upon which, well, your house stands. You stand and walk and lie down and sleep and sit. Your furniture, that's where the furniture comes to land. It supports everything, neutral feeling. However, it seems to be, that always the negative or painful feeling and the pleasurable feelings, these two that have gotten the most attention, which is what I'm trying to highlight as to why. The noise of that coloration I was mentioning, the noise of the good and the bad, the painful and the pleasurable feelings, oftentimes cloud your mind to see what's what. When you pay attention to the breath, the mind is fighting you, the body is fighting you. There's agitation, there's this, there's that. But what essentially is happening is the mind is having a hard time accepting that anything worthwhile could come out of the neutral. But your sit, Lord Buddha's sitting, for example, that's the epitome of what a neutral feeling is. Nothing's happening, so it seems, but your observational skill is becoming more and more powerful with every moment of sati that you have, every moment of mindfulness you have, either with the breath, contemplation of death, cutting through, dissecting the body, through and through the 32 aspects of the body, layer by layer, with your mind. Or going and sitting in a cemetery or charnel ground where they're bringing in dead bodies and they're cremating them in front of you and you're sitting there to watch. That pushes, that last example, that pushes you, as does the breaking the body into 32 parts mentally. Those types of practices can push you beyond the pleasurable and the painful, by the way. But what they leave behind, what they get you to experience is the neutrality of it all, because what you do realize there is the impermanence. Especially if you can do the before and after in your mind. Like in some of the Theravada verses I've been translating, you see several bhikkhus sitting there, bhikkhus that have had a strong infatuation with the female figure. There was one who was the only son of a rich family, a rich couple. And they give him his inheritance, basically. He's so wealthy, but he had his eye on this courtesan. So he goes and says, you know, how much? So she gives him an outrageous number, and he's like, okay. He pays her. After he's with her for a while, he runs out of all his money. He basically gambles away all of his money, and now he realizes what he's done. And he goes and becomes a bhikkhu. What's the point? Perhaps also out of shame. Of course, who wouldn't be ashamed? Now, someone else, another rich person, goes to the same courtesan. And she also asks for some, whatever the price is. And he pays her. But she eyes something that he's wearing. A big ruby. I think either a ring or a necklace, something like that, that he's carrying with him. It's his. And she tries to get it from him. Seduce him, this, that, play all these games and tricks. He refuses through and through. He pays her for whatever she had asked for, and then he leaves. On the way out, she calls her own minions, because if you're such a woman, such a person, and you're making that much money, you're going to be able to have some bodyguards, people who, will do your bidding. So she says, go and get the ruby from him at all costs. They say, okay, so they go. Meanwhile, that rich person's servant is with him. So they attack the man, they kill him, they take the ruby, they bring it to her. Meanwhile, this young servant actually saw everything. He goes and lets the king's guards know about this, and they come. They arrest those two characters. They arrest her. At first they're lying, this and that, and then while being tortured, they confess. They get the ruby from her. And in the process, also, because she killed a very wealthy person and somebody who's known at the court, the punishment is swift. They kill her. They take her where? To the charnel ground. And who happens to be there? That first idiot, the rich kid who has spent all his family's wealth on that courtesan. He's sitting there minding his own business, meditating, thinking that he's really making, strides with his, meditation becoming more and more advanced, until this naked body, cut into pieces, lands in front of him. Naked. And he recognizes from those features as to who it was. And then suddenly something happens in him, his heart. Lust comes up. He realizes what he's doing. He becomes disgusted of himself, basically. And he gets up and he goes off to another area of the charnel ground, scolding himself, chastising himself. He says, what are you doing? What is that? First of all, she's dead. Second, why are you even looking at her in that way? You're a bhikkhu. You've left all of that behind you. You should feel, all that. So he's looking at his heart and realizing that the defilements were there. So I'm saying this in connection to, don't be fooled into thinking that the neutral feeling has nothing to offer. Because the defilements are so deep, they're so latent. In essence, no neutral feeling is really neutral so long as we are not arahants. Because underneath it all, there is the sewage that's running. The cesspit is alive and well with defilements, with the kilesas, those impurities of the heart. Whether they are passions, lust, greed, stinginess, miserliness. These are all ugly, ugly things. Hatred. And remember, hatred or aversion does not happen towards someone else first. It happens first within you, towards you. It burns, it's fire. And wherever the fire lands, that's where it's going to burn, my parents used to say. So by the way, he goes and he realizes, and he goes deep in his meditation because he's looking at the repulsive until it becomes neutral enough so his mind calms down. The extremes, lust is an extreme, passions are extremes of course, but that's not the way to Nibbana. It's looking at the neutral feeling. Once the body, the mind come to a rest, and then you see, then you start seeing, whether it's through the breath meditation or through metta practice, where the emotionality drops to standstill. Then you start seeing what Lord Buddha says in the suttas, yatha bhutang pajanati. The person comes to know and see for oneself things as they occur, without the coloration of emotions. So the painful and the pleasurable are distractions. The real prize is in the neutral. That's why, at least in this path, this particular part of Buddhism, which is Buddhism proper, the Dhamma that Lord Buddha taught, the historical Buddha that taught, in here, in this tradition, we still have the teaching that gets a person to Nibbana. Others don't. Because in other traditions, you're actually promoting passions, desires, color, flavorful life, this and that. And that's not the path of Lord Buddha. And you also see that in other traditions as well. Gods, this, that. There's passion there. There's heat. There's anger there. Nobody sits down and talks about neutral, the neutral feeling. That's why when someone was looking at Lord Buddha, seeing that nothing, no lightning bolts were shooting out of his skin and things like that, he wasn't levitating as they wanted to see him do. Even though all these things Lord Buddha manifested in different parts of his life. But he didn't go around, because he would say this path is not based on such so-called miracles. Otherwise you're looking for an entertainer, a circus act. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for the next David Copperfield type of a character. Well, where does that leave the superiority of the spiritual path? Well, that is where the neutral feeling will guide you. If you have the tolerance for it, if you have the willingness. And that's why this path is not for everyone. If you're looking for passion, if you're looking for energy, if you're looking for energy as in like hot, cold, up and down, spikes left and right, and that is how you want to see the path, there's other religions providing you. Most of them do. This doesn't. But this does take you to Nibbana, supreme. And that is the only thing that's going to cut off the link to samsara. Every other road is actually, every other religion is taking you through rebirth. Impossible for it to be otherwise. Why? Because there are the passions present in them. We have to transcend these. Go beyond them. And what does that mean, go beyond? The neutral feeling. That's what we're talking. Remember the pendulum. The area between. So majority of your feelings are neutral feelings. So your job is to make sure that you keep paying attention to that. When you are getting up from a sitting position, when you're walking, when you're standing still, when your eyes are looking at something that is not so colorful, something that is not, exciting, happening, this and that, jolting you. Watch the mind. Settle in that space. The attention span of a human has dropped incredibly fast. Next time you're watching something online or on TV or something, turn off the audio and see how many scenes, how many different frames run every second on the screen. Different angles, different perspectives, different shots, different. What is that? That's creating heat in your brain. Your eyes are moving like a monkey to catch up. And what is that doing? The heart is agitated. That's why people can't practice today. It's all suppressed type of practice. To look a certain way, to sit in front of a teacher, behaving like, yeah, see, I'm there, I'm almost there, I'm like almost there, becoming an adult right there, I'm like there. Meanwhile, they're not. There's so much like, pushed. It's almost like a pressure cooker. And once the right conditions are there, it pops. I've seen this even in so-called teachers, let alone practitioners. It's become a world of theatricals, this religious practice. Especially as a bhikkhu I can speak, and as a practitioner of the Dhamma for over 35 years, I can tell you that this is where we are now. The Dhamma itself has become a world of theatrics. People have been walking away from the teachings of Lord Buddha. How many people are actually reading the suttas or listening to the suttas? We're looking for the next cookie, next bells and whistles type of a new teacher comes out, where they're attractive, they're selling books, they're selling, audiences, or sold out retreats, this and that, giving you things, states, attainments, and the associations with those characters. Now you have bigger and bigger circles. So what's happening? What is happening to the person? More and more agitation. The exact opposite of the neutral feeling that we have to pursue. To understand, because understanding can only come when things quiet down. And once you've reached that point where the understanding is so clear, they can toss you in the middle of a hurricane and you see things as they are still. Why? Because you have reached that state of contentment to such a level, nothing can shake you. When they toss you in the middle of a Las Vegas strip, you're fine. You don't want to be there, of course, but you're fine, irrespective of the conditions. Why, though? Was it because of those hot emotions of pleasurable and painful? No. Because you were able to decipher through and find and settle in that quietude, which meditation proper provides for you, if you do the right steps. So, practice with your meditation object. Don't change things. Don't add things. Have the element of trust, even though the mind comes in and says, come on, let's go and do that. It's more colorful. Let's go and do that. Stay. As Webu Sayadaw would say, don't leave the train to Mandalay, a major city in Burma. He was talking to the Burmese villagers. He would just teach them one technique, the breath. Very simple. He would say, no matter what happens, stay on the train to Mandalay. Don't switch trains. Don't get up, leave at the next exit, simply because you think it's going to somewhere else. Or you start worrying, oh, did I miss my stop? Did I miss? No. Your ticket says Mandalay, it says Mandalay. Your expectations are the things that are ruining it. Be quiet, get settled in your chair, in your seat, go deep. And trust. That's the big one. Trust allows you to get comfy in the neutral. Trust. Trust of the Dhamma, trust of Lord Buddha, trust of your teacher, trust of the technique. And if need be, you can just do a before and after review. 10 years ago, a year ago, was I in this state? Would I do now the things that I did back then? And if the answer is resounding no, you're on the right track. You're on the way to Mandalay. Good? Any other questions?